Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in again. Those that were with us earlier this morning, we had a chance to talk with Dr. Alexander Garrison to really walk us through what a university lecture really looks like. And so thanks for joining us now. We have a second follow-up session today, really staying in line with the terms and topics of academics, and really looking at what academic supports look like here at New College. So in terms of how we are in terms of our summer welcome program, we've had a chance to talk about our student life roundtable previously in our family and parents session 2 weeks ago, and those have been recorded. And so these sessions are going to be recorded as well. So in case you have to step out early or maybe joined a little bit late, this information we can always revisit later. We'll be posting toward our YouTube account and on Presence. But again, thanks for each of you for joining. I'm going to let my lovely colleague Neda kind of take it from here. But yeah, looking forward to having you here. And thanks so much. We already have 61 people in the chat, which is amazing. Thanks so much.
We are really excited to have this chance to speak with all of you, and we're a panel. We have a student, Sabrina, if you want to wave. Delighted that you're here. We have Kevin. Kevin Edmonds is a professor in Caribbean Studies. We have Tess is a writing center instructor, and so am I. I'm Sheila. And Annetta, who's struggling a bit with the internet, is our librarian. So we're each going to speak for 5 or so minutes and tell you what we offer. And I think we're a wonderful part is that we have Sabrina with us, because students usually like to hear from students best. And then we'll turn to Kevin, a professor, and then Tess and I will speak as Writing Center faculty, and then Annetta will conclude our presentation. So if it's okay with you, Sabrina, I'll just turn over to you.
Thank you, Sheila. Hi, everyone. Happy you could be joining us. So my name is Sabrina, and last year I completed my undergrad, and this year I'm going into my master's program. So I'm just going to be giving you a little perspective and like the differences and the transition into university in comparison to high school. So a large expectation, at least for me and my friends entering university, was like the newfound freedom of university. There's no teachers like in contact with your parents. They're not ringing down their emails or their phones about attendance or homework. So like the responsibility falls down on you a lot, and it might seem too good to be true, and it usually is. Even though that newfound freedom is like so needed, it can also be a detriment if like you take too advantage of it. So I'd recommend like trying to keep similar study habits that you had in high school, or similar time management skills, or even improving on them some more. So what else? Another expectation is with the newfound freedom, you can do like the myth of constant parties on campus. So with COVID right now, I'm not sure how much parties we'll be able to enjoy, unfortunately, but they usually wind down around Halloween time because midterms are around the corner. And with midterms in mind, if you took full advantage of your newfound freedom, you're going to find yourself like 3 weeks or a month behind on reading, on homework. So I'd recommend really staying on top of that. And another transition is like a difficult thing to come to terms with. The people you're entering university with, you have like an expectation that you'll be leaving with them, which may not always be the case. You'll find your groove within different communities on campus. You might be in different programs, different interests, and that's totally okay to grow into yourself. You might be growing apart from people, which I found. And also with approaching your first paper or exam, I recommend starting as early as possible. We'll hear later from Sheila and Tess about like the resources that we have at New College, but I would recommend starting as early as possible and being in contact as much with your TA, and if you're comfortable being in contact with your professors, like these people are here to see you succeed and to see you strive, even though they might seem like intimidating to approach at first. I understand is very intimidating, like in a class of like 500 people, 600 people, to take that first step to go to office hours, which is made easier with tutorials, much smaller groups, maybe 15, 20 people, where you can actually fine tune your research, fine tune your writing, and really like get a breakdown of expectations. And another thing in approaching your first paper assignment would be like edit, like tediously edit your first draft. I made that mistake once, being too confident in first drafts and like just submitting it, and then it was very humbling experience to see that first C or D come back in first year. So I'd recommend editing. Your future self will thank you immensely for that. Yeah. And I think that's, I'm open to questions, but that's the major takeaways that I took from undergrad.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sabrina. I think we'll take questions
you.
at the end. So if you want to keep a note of anything or keep them in mind. Great to get your perspective. So we'll turn to Kevin Edmonds. And it's great we have you here as a professor.
Just Kevin is okay, but I know that that's part of the. I go by Kevin, but other professors will go by Professor so and so. So that's part of the intimidating thing. I think that Sabrina was talking about is that I don't think all professors have the same kind of personas on campus. You'll find some are easier to get in touch with and communicate with than others. I'm lucky that I teach very small classes for the most part, so I'm able to interact with the students in a way now that I wasn't able to when I taught classes at the Mississauga campus that was like 400 students. So something that I would encourage students to do is to take the first step and approach the professor or TA, but ideally you would get in touch with both and form a relationship with both, because we are here to help. A lot of times people think that we just get dropped into the classroom to lecture and then just leave, but the reality is that a lot of our job as well, aside from prepping lectures, giving lectures, is to actually support students. We have designated office hours every week for every class that we hold. So we're sitting in a room waiting for people to come and talk to us. And the sad part of that is that I sit in the office waiting and no one shows up. It's very, very depressing in a way, because not that I feel lonely, that's part of it, but the other side is I know people have questions, and they're not taking advantage of that time to come and ask us for help. So in the office hours, you can come with questions, general stuff. If it could be something as simple, you don't understand the concept in the reading, or it's not clear, or maybe you grasp it a little bit, but you want an additional reading to help you to understand some of these terms. We can provide all of that. Sometimes it's just people want to talk more about a concept or a reading or a lecture they found very interesting. We're happy to talk with you more about that. Something that I do, I can't speak for all professors, but if students are really proactive and they come with a draft of their paper, because we have that time, I'm able to sit down and go over your work with you and highlight what is great, what needs work, what you could take out, or different ideas. So it can be very, very specific in that way, or we can just talk about things that are happening on campus in your life, that are happening, you know, social issues, political issues, all that kind of stuff. That office hours are for all of that. But most of the time, people don't take advantage of them. And that goes for when I was a TA, but also now as a professor. So I know that's a lot. The last thing that I'll say, start early, as Sabrina said. I mean, first week is obviously you're going to be overwhelmed, but as soon as you feel comfortable, or even when you're not totally comfortable, just take that first step and reach out, even if it's just an email, to establish that connection, break the ice. talk to your professor. You can come up to them before class. A lot of times in classes, there's a break. You could come talk to profs then after class. We're always happy to talk with students. That's my most favorite thing about teaching is actually the students. The biggest difference between high school and university level learning, I think, is that, as Sabrina said, the freedom, like you have the freedom to party, like Sabrina was focusing on. Well, also the academic side as well, right? Is that you have that freedom, but it's a double-edged sword, because I think that point was great, that things pile up. And that's, you're allowed to let that happen. I mean, there's deadlines, but a lot of times people cut things really close, and I realize that everyone procrastinates. But it's learning how to manage that in a way that's sustainable, that you don't stress yourself out too much, right? University is stressful, but time management is really, really important. And we can also talk about strategies about time management. The other thing is also expectations in terms of maybe you used to get like A pluses in your last year of high school, A's. Don't worry if that drops a bit when you come in, because we're relearning. You'll see those grades will come up as long as you try. But it's just, you have to learn the university system a little bit, because the expectations are a bit different when it comes to putting together essays or assignments. So I would say to kind of just not worry too much, but just ask for help, because there's plenty of help that's around. But I think that they're not often utilized to the extent that they should be. So I'll stop there. But it's also nice to see everyone, and thank you for joining.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Kevin. Tess, we'll turn to you. Oh, mute. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm Tess. I work at the New College Writing Center with Sheila, and we offer one-on-one support for undergraduate students at any stage, which is something that I didn't realize when I was an undergraduate. I thought you had to have like a full draft and then go into the writing center, but we can talk about assignments with you. Some of your professors will give you assignments that are just like, write a paper, and others will give you very detailed assignments that take up, 2 or 3 pages, and you have to follow them explicitly. And we can offer help at both ends of that spectrum. So I think that's one of the main differences between high school and university writing. I mean, obviously you bring in all the experience and all the expertise that you've had coming up through high school, and you wouldn't be at University of Toronto if you weren't already a good student and making good grades and writing good papers. But there's always a jump when you move from one level to another. And one of those jumps is just the length of papers that you're asked to write. I don't know, Sabrina can probably attest to this, but going from a paper that's maybe no more than 5 or 6 pages to maybe being asked to write a paper that's 8 to 10 pages, or at the end of a term being asked to write a paper that's 15 pages. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out where to even begin in a situation like that. And we can talk to you and try to help you at every stage. So whether it's, you've just got a mess of free writing, or you've got a bunch of questions, or you've got a full draft, you can come in at any point. Did you want to add anything to that, Sheila?
No, I think that's good. Yeah. Should I take over at this point?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay.
We
Okay,
can go
great.
back and forth.
We'll go back and forth. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I like the way you put it in terms of the jump, right? But there's been other jumps that you've made, right? When you transitioned into high school. And so this one, there are a lot of supports for you. And the Writing Center folks are pretty friendly. We've chosen to do this work because we love writing, but a lot of us, well, I would say most people struggle with writing, right? And sometimes there becomes a bit of a mystique around it. People think that, some people are born as great writers, and others are just struggle, and it's always, I think it can always be hard, but there's definitely strategies that we learn. And university, you're moving from subjects to disciplines and programs, and you read your books, and you read your prof and the course and the institution, and you're kind of learning, as Kevin alluded to, you're learning how the whole system works. And we're here to help with all of that. And I like Tessa's point that you don't just come to the Writing Center when you've got a full draft. So it would be excellent for you to come in the summer. And that's available to you. There's going to be, right now, we don't have one-to-one appointments, but we'll have them starting around the 20th. And those will be largely for people that are doing a summer course, but they're also available to you. And it's wonderful to come in the summer, or especially in September. Come in and you can bring a piece of writing from high school, and we can talk about high school and your concerns with the shift to the new way that we read, the amount of readings. That's such a big issue. And we're called the Writing Center, but we also really support people around reading. And there are designated appointments, reading appointments, with one of our faculty who's kind of expert in reading strategies. But all of us are really want to help you with that, because you get, depending on what discipline you're in, you may have, hundreds of pages to read, and how do you do it? And we'll have strategies around: read the intro, read the conclusion, skim the middle if you just don't have time, read one of the articles well, but do your best to keep up with your readings. I really liked the point, Sabrina, about the freedom, and you're going to meet people, and it's exciting to perhaps not be with your parents, or to have, not have your parents as knowledgeable about your every move. That may be the case depending on where you're living, but start early with everything. Book a Writing Center appointment early. A time that's wonderful to meet with you is in those first couple weeks in September, when you've been to maybe most of your classes, you've got your syllabus, and you're looking at that, and that's a different kind of document than you've had in high school. And there's ways to examine that and to prepare yourself. The piece around time management, with which Kevin mentioned, is so important. And so come with your syllabi from your courses, and maybe that first assignment that you've got. Okay, you've got something due at the end of September or early October, and you've got the assignment description. Come and talk to us. We look at hundreds of assignment descriptions, and it's really great to help you if you want to talk through your ideas and your early ideas. We love that part, as we also do with all stages of it, right? So trying to get your thesis, if that's the kind of assignment you're doing, or if it's a scientific one and you're looking at the hypothesis, and then to that editing. And the point about editing. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think that was Sabrina. Yeah, thanks. That's so important. A lot of you in high school probably got away with writing things kind of at the last minute. It really doesn't work at this stage. You might sort of get away with it, but it's really not the way to produce writing that you're going to feel good about. So, yeah, Tess.
Oh, I just wanted to pick up on one thing that Sabrina said earlier, that a lot of you will be used to getting A's and A pluses. When I first started going to university, I didn't go to the Writing Center for the first few years because I didn't think I needed it. I thought I was a good writer already, and even though I was kind of struggling with myself, it somehow didn't even occur to me that I could do that and access those things, or that I could really go and see my professors. And once I finally did, I was like, oh, like I don't have to struggle with this all by myself anymore. I've suddenly like had this brief conversation with my professor or this writing instructor, and something that I would have struggled with for hours or days or weeks is suddenly clear in the span of a conversation. And that was a revelation. I was like, why didn't I access this free help earlier?
Mm, yeah, great point. People do find us sometimes in fourth year, and they really are going, oh my gosh, I needed this all the way along, right? And this is part of what your tuition is paying for. And I think actually in my era, they didn't have writing centers, at least where I was doing my undergrad. And did I ever need it? And I was doing English and philosophy, and the two kinds of writing were quite different, but I really needed, if I could have had a conversation with someone about the kinds of papers that I'm doing over here and the kinds I'm doing here, it would have been so helpful, because I was kind of in a bit of a muddle about that. Um, so I think in terms of, you know, the difference between the two kinds of writing, I mean, here you learn to do research in a different way, which Annetta will talk about. Your writing becomes, depending on the discipline, it often becomes more kind of concept based. There's less memorization, at least in many of the fields. You're thinking about ideas, you're developing your own ideas about these ideas and trying to think with the readings you're doing. And that will take place gradually. And many of your professors will be supporting, most of them, it's their job to support you. And often they'll be going, okay, I've got first year students. How can I think of this first year assignment as being one that'll work well for these students? And just maybe my last point, the one-to-one appointments with the writing instructor, we aren't your professor, so we aren't marking you. We are very much someone who we want to help you. And so you can also come to us and we can talk about going to see your TA or your professor. We encourage that so strongly. And some students find it just easier to have a conversation with us first and to get used to one-to-one. Much of it'll be online, but some will be available in person. And then you might get up that bit more courage to speak to TAs and professors. And I like the point about at the break, before, after, develop relationships with those of us who are here to support you. Thanks. Annetta, how are you doing? Are you able to join?
Sheila, I'm actually talking to her on the side. She is having
Okay.
challenges with the connection. So I'm
Okay.
wondering if it's helpful to maybe if you can shift the slide forward, you can maybe have some intro piece, and then if Annetta joins and tries to join, you can add some context, but you can perhaps do a glossing of an overview. That would be really helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just say a little tiny bit. We work very closely with the librarians, but if Annetta can come in, she'll be able to say a little bit more. But there are libraries all over U of T, and the writing the New College one is right in New College. Small. I think find a library that works for you. There's the big library, Robarts, and I never found it friendly. But at our library, the Ivy Library, you've got Annetta and Jeff. So you have two librarians, and you can make one-to-one appointments with them, research consultations. And I think
Hi,
that's
Sheila.
what. Oh, good. Yay.
I'm back. I'm
Anetta.
so sorry.
No problem.
Oh,
I'll let you jump in.
thank you. That's perfect. Yes. So my name is Anetta Clack, and I am one of the librarians that you have available at DG Ivy Library. And so on the screen is a picture of Nyambu, which is our plush mascot. And then behind him, he's on the staircase, or it's on the staircase in the library. Due to COVID, the library is currently closed. But hopefully sometime soon, by September, we'll be able to invite you into our space. And so when people think of the library, they often think, or students often think, it's a place to study, it's where you get work done, it's where you have to walk to get your books that are not available electronically. But I want to highlight that it's more than just a space. You do have librarians who are really here to help you find the information that you need to get all of your projects completed. I'm not sure if any of you have checked out the library website, so the library is more than just a space. You have librarians who are available to help you find the information you need to complete your projects. When I was in high school, and I'm sure all of you are used to kind of using Google or Wikipedia to get information that you need to complete your assignments. In university, that's no longer really acceptable. Wikipedia is a great place to start if you are really confused about a topic and you know nothing about it, but it's not a credible source that you can use in your assignments. And so in university, you're asked to look for scholarly articles or scholarly books or peer-reviewed. These are terms that mean that this piece of writing was written by experts in the field. And so librarians are specialized in helping you find this scholarly material. And so trying to shift you away from using Wikipedia and Google into using the library database, which can be confusing and hard to navigate. I know when I was a student, it kind of scared me to use the website. So I just really want to encourage everybody to connect with your librarians. The point that's being stressed throughout this session is that you have services and supports available to help you. And my internet is saying it's unstable, so I hope everyone can hear me. I'm just going to say one more thing to wrap up because my internet's a little wonky. Okay, but you will be connected with a personal librarian as first-year students. You should have an email coming into your inbox in September connecting you to a librarian, but you can also connect to your new college librarians. Visit the library website at newcollege.utoronto.ca/library, and you can book an appointment with us there. We are very flexible with all of our students, trying to accommodate different time zones in this COVID era. So please just reach out and we will help you kind of become familiar with the new searching that you'll have to do in university. Thank you so much. Todd posted it into the chat. Thank you so much for that. And I think we're good to go on to the Q&A section now. And I'll pass it on to Sheila to kind of get us started for that.
Sheila, you need to unmute.
Oh.
Sorry,
Can
Sheila.
you hear me?
Now we can hear you. There you go.
Okay, yeah, thanks so much. So you've heard from all the resource people here, student, faculty, writing center, library, and we would really welcome any questions that you've got at this point. And I think the questions are put into the chat. Is that the case, Todd? And then we'll...
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, so put your questions into the chat. Really, any questions are just fine.
And if you want to use the microphone to say your question, if you can just say, I have a question in the chat. If you have a longer one that might be easier to explain using your voice, and then we'll call you out. Oh, Ronit, there we go. So we can unmute you. You mute yourself and just ask the question.
I'm Ronit, and I just want to ask about, like, in terms of like, because a lot of us are going to be online for like at least the fall semester. How do we
Yes.
like, what resources of the library that can we access like on our own?
Mhm.
Like, what's
Great.
online?
Yeah, so I can answer that. The library has a ton of articles and books that are available electronically, and you can find all of those using the library website. One key thing I want to stress is that as a University of Toronto student, you do not need to pay for anything. Any kind of information you need, please do not pay for any of it. Connect with the librarian if you're having any trouble finding any information. But yes, we have a ton of electronic resources available. I think it's about over 12 million materials in electronic format. So we have tons of access to electronic resources. We also have access to a collection of print books that were scanned and made available electronically in the States. And so we have temporary access to all of that. And I know some of you are not located in Toronto, so we do have some services to kind of scan any print books and send them to you. So that's still being like formulated, but that you will be able to have anything that you need to complete your studies. So don't worry about that.
Mhm. Great. Maybe I'll just add in terms of
Good question.
perhaps I'll just add a bit there in terms of the Writing Center. When COVID hit in March, we turned all our appointments to online appointments. So there's different kinds of online appointments that we've developed, and one is a kind of e-tutoring where you send your paper and we give comments and throughout the paper and some overall comments. And that works not badly, but the really excellent service that we have is a face-to-face synchronous appointment where we can look at the paper together and talk it through with you and get your questions and have the kind of dialogue that we were having face-to-face, and we use online methods for it, and it seems to work really very well.
Still, I'm seeing
Okay.
2 questions in the chat there, 2 more. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, okay, so Sarah asks, from my understanding, we can access a lot of academic journals and research papers when we're connected to Edurum internet access with our, okay. Is it possible to access these same resources? Yeah. Anetta?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. Yes, with your University of Toronto login, you can access these resources from home. So if you're using the library website, or if you happen to use Google Scholar, there is a button called Get It UTL in Google Scholar. It should recognize that you are a University of Toronto student, and then you just log in with your UTOR ID, so your U of T Toronto ID. That's the same ID you use to log into Quarkus. So Quarkus is the place where your professors will be posting all of the content. So whatever you use to log into that, you use to access your electronic resources. And if you have any trouble with your logins, once again, just connect with a librarian and we will help you with any troubleshooting as well.
Maybe I can move us forward here. So thanks, Netta. So then, and hopefully that answers your question there. The next question we have from Vivian, wondering if anyone would have any advice on how to obtain textbooks needed for courses, for example, different ways of getting them, how to get them with considerations financially, if you can get PDF versions, etc. So obtaining
If possible, I would just speak to this. I mean, it totally depends on the course that you're taking. Because as professors, when we put together the syllabi for the term, I think a lot of people realize the difficulties involved with COVID and accessing materials, and like that's slowly changing and getting better. But personally, for the courses that I've had, and Sabrina can speak to it as well because I was lucky enough to have her as a student. I don't have students buy textbooks. That might be rare. But I know the university is also shifting to electronic licensed textbooks. Like I think it's called Top Hat, which I have my own option, but I think there's lots of different ways that you can get them. I realize it's a library course and accessing information is important, but doing it correctly in terms of copyright is something that I will be mindful of, but also I would encourage students that you guys are creative. There's ways to get books. You can share them. It doesn't mean that, you know, if you're in a class, you each have to have your own individual copy. You can share them. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, yeah, I won't say too much, but profs can also, and students can help you do that as well. So it's always good to connect with people. But yeah, I think that just asking questions, because a lot of times even professors could say, maybe they advise you to get the latest edition of the textbook, and you say, well, that one's $300. Would I be okay getting last year's version, which is half the price? So just make sure to double check before you make these big investments in textbooks, because there's ways, the information is out there. Sometimes you can get them through the library as well. So it just means being there early to get the books, because there's course reserves and things as well like that, that Aneta and everyone else can speak to.
Perhaps Sabrina can jump in just from the student perspective about getting textbooks, and then I'll cut in afterwards to talk about the library.
So Kevin, a blessing, absolutely. He's one of few professors who make readings accessible online through scanning and PDF versions. And I think I found that more towards third year and fourth year courses. Professors were more accommodating with that. Whereas with first year large con hall courses, they expected for you to spend $200, $300 on a textbook. And course reserves really came in to save a lot of us, where you can even request that the library buy a book and put it in course reserve, or if the professor has a copy, they can scan it into course reserve. And with course reserve, you can borrow the book for like 24 or 48 hours, a short-term period, and scan it by yourself, which was also a great alternative.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in now to talk a bit about how the library works with textbooks. And so course reserves is a phrase that's being said a little bit. And what course reserves is, it's a section in the library where books and other material is put for a shorter loan period. So normally as students, you have access to our library collection for about, I think, 14 days, whereas course reserve material is only available for either 3 hours, 24, or 72 hours. It really depends on the material and what the instructor wants. And so sometimes textbooks are placed on course reserve, so students can borrow the textbook for 2 hours, then return it, and then the next student has access to it. And so the library does work really closely with instructors to make sure that textbooks are available. I see a few questions about textbook. So I think she asks if there are textbooks in the library, or do we need to buy them from the bookstore? So it really depends on your course. You can check the library website to see if there is a copy available at the library. Sometimes there are multiple copies available, and some of those copies are available for like the full 14-day loan. So if you get to the library early and you're physically able to get to the library, I know COVID kind of throws a wrench in all of this stuff, because we want to make sure that everyone is safe when doing so. So if you get to the library early, you can borrow these textbooks and you don't necessarily have to buy them. And does that answer the textbook questions?
There's a question that I saw about when will students know what questions they need and what textbooks they need, sorry. And, you know, as soon as your class starts, you're going to get your syllabus. But professors often have that available before. There's something called Quirkus, which you'll be learning about, and that's an online site for everything to do with your course. And that's often available before the courses start. So you go in there and you see what textbooks you need, and you'll start to also be able to map out what your year is like. I did see someone mentioning about the public library, and I love public libraries, and I do have them as a backup. So, you know, why not check if your public library has a book? I think that's a good idea. I think students are creative, and in these times, we're all having to kind of find different ways of doing things. But like Kevin, when I was teaching courses, I didn't have books on the syllabus. I had many choices of books people could use for assignments, but I had portions of texts and had them on Quarkus, because that way they're accessible to everybody.
And I wanted to say, and also thank Annetta because Annetta and Jeff do a great job to make the materials accessible to students, so that even if it's a book chapter of a physical book that is not available online, they do amazing work to make it appear online for people. So that's something that's there for new college courses. I'm not sure if that's across the university, but it's a great thing as an instructor, but also for students. That new college library does a great job of making the materials as accessible as possible to students.
Any other questions?
I see that Shelly Patel, I'm just going to address your question here. So the question is, if we stay home next year, should you try to access university libraries near you, or use the public library to access resources? I think I see my internet is connection, but if you have a public library near you, and you have a library card, you can definitely use the public library to access resources. But in terms of if you find something at University of Toronto that you know we have, I would just connect with the librarian to see what possibilities there are to get this material. I know the public library collection is slightly different from what an academic library has, so we have a lot of research and material that is kind of academic focused, as opposed to kind of like more leisurely focused. So really connecting to the University of Toronto librarians and asking them for help finding these sources might be a better approach to that. And then I have a question that was sent to me privately, so I will just quickly read this off. So if you're with the COVID-19, everything's been moved online, and so the question is about how do you access labs or practicals? And I'm not sure if I can speak to that, because I'm not really sure what the plans are, but I know that there will be plans sent out to students on how to kind of conduct your lab work and practicals. I'm not sure what they are yet. I don't know if anyone on the panel does know.
I think all those discussions are really in place, you know, about those lab-based and practical courses. I really think there's going to be a mixture of things, right, between face-to-face, lab-based, practical, and lots of online. Yeah, it's too bad that this happens to be the year that you're starting university. I really, really feel for this class coming in, and that's the reality you're in. So we really want to work with you to make this a transition that why call it smooth, because it isn't really nothing's smooth these days, but to make it a process that's going to work for you. So there's a lot that can happen online. I was very much a face-to-face person, but I'm finding the online writing center appointments great, and the writing center and other places will have a mixture for people who are on campus. We won't use our small crowded office, we'll use a bigger space. And we also, with the writing center, have a drop-in, the writing room, and we used to do it face-to-face, but now we're doing it online as well. And there'll be workshops, and those will, you know, primarily be online, but there may be some face-to-face. We want to offer as much as we can to the incoming students.
Speaking of online, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tess.
So there's a question from Sophia asking about if they're doing courses online, will the lessons be recorded or will they be live? And I think that's going to be different for every course that you have. And it's going to depend on how many students are in the class as well. So your professors will be telling you how you're going to be doing that. And it'll be different for every single one. For some, you'll have recorded sessions that you can watch on your own and that you can rewatch, which at first I was like, oh, we're not going to have a live presentation by the professor, but being able to see things over and over again was this kind of incredible gift that I was surprised by. And I was also surprised by how well face-to-face stuff worked, especially in smaller groups, and being able to break out into little sessions, which you can do in Zoom. I don't know if anybody has anything to add to that.
Perhaps Kevin can address that. I think Kevin taught this summer, so maybe, yeah, he can touch on.
Yeah, so all the courses this summer are probably pretty obvious. They were all online. So this, for me, it was the first time teaching online. And it went better than I thought. I mean, it's not ideal because I like to engage with people and have the discussion, but I think one thing it did do, as Tess mentioned, it makes it a lot more accessible for people, because we did record the sessions. We had students from, I won't say all over the world, but there were students across Canada, and we had a student in Germany, a student in the Bahamas, and they were able to access the class live if they wanted to, if they could stay up that late, if they were in Germany. But we recorded it so that someone had to miss out, or the internet connection for them wasn't working at that time. For whatever reason, it was choppy, it was dropping, they could access it later when it was more accessible to them. So I know that I'm teaching in the fall. As long as things stay the way that it is, we are also in a very uncertain position. So if you feel that you don't have a lot of information, you're not alone. That things are changing, right? And I think that's part of it, is that we just try to keep an open mind and be flexible. The main thing is that the policies that are in place, it's trying to keep us safe. So it can be frustrating to some people. I know first year classes are often the larger classes, and those might be moved totally online from what I've been told. But some of the classes that I have, and some of the new college classes, there's different options. So we have them where there will be in-person classes. So if you are in the city, obviously, and you feel comfortable coming to campus, which is something else that you do have control over. You're not going to lose marks for attendance if you don't feel comfortable taking transit or doing whatever you need to do to come to class. There's other ways to access it, but I will be giving in-person lectures as long as everything is according to plan. But those lectures will also be recorded, so anyone that is not able to make it into the classroom, whether they're locally based or based internationally, because of all the travel stuff is still up in the air, you'll be able to participate and ask questions as well. Again, the time zone things can make it difficult. Obviously, if you're in the total opposite time zone, if I'm teaching at noon, it will be midnight for you. Sometimes that's fine, depending on your sleep schedule, but for other people that won't work. But we will make ourselves available. So if you did have a question, you could send us an email or in the chat on Quarkus, which was mentioned earlier. We can respond to you. So I would say that during this time, if there is an element of confusion, reach out to one of us. So either your professor, or we said TA quite a few times before, and if I should have clarified it, so I apologize about that. TAs are teaching assistants. So if you have a large lecture, maybe it's 200 people, a lot of times you get those classes broken down into smaller sections called tutorials, where you have an individual teaching assistant. And the classes, I think they're no more than 30 people. Sometimes it can be even a lot smaller, depending. If you take an early morning tutorial, you'll probably be the only person in the class, because everyone likes to take it midday. But that way, you have at least two people that you could talk to: the professor who gives the lecture, but also the teaching assistant who is responsible for like the more it's not to say the professors don't do the interpersonal side of stuff, but they can do more hands-on work because they know you more, that you have at least an hour with them every week, if not more, and you probably will feel more comfortable talking to your TA than the professor, and that's totally up to you. Sometimes that's not the case, but all of us are open to talking to you. So if you have questions about textbooks, attendance, assignments, what resources are available, make sure you reach out to us. We're happy to hear from you, and we want to help you because we realize it's a very confusing time for everyone.
Great.
I was just going to jump in. I see a question from a student about if the library is going to be open for studying in the fall. And I wanted to quickly address that because I know we have 1 minute left. Right now, the library is not open physically. There's no study, or there is a study space available in one library. And I think that is going to pilot how we open the rest of them. So we are working on trying to get the actual spaces open, but we are really working on making sure that it's done so in a way that we are practicing social distancing measures and it is safe for everyone to do so. When the libraries open up to be study spaces, you will know about it. There is a COVID-19 update page on the main library website at library.utoronto.ca. So if you just monitor that library website and just check through your inbox, you will definitely get more information as it becomes available. As Kevin said, we're all kind of trying to adjust to this new normal. And so right now there's only one library that's open, but hopefully the rest of them will be more available once it's safe to do so.
Okay, great. I just wanted to mention another resource, which are the learning strategists. So those individuals are specifically there to help you with things like time management, different ways of learning, how you can break down your assignments. They're wonderful people, and you meet them one-to-one, and that'll be online primarily. There may be some face-to-face as well. But they're trained in learning styles, learning abilities, learning differences, how to kind of make this transition. So draw on all the resources, right? Be open to all of them. And also very much your peers as well. I'm not sure your take on it, Sabrina, but I feel like students help each other. And although we're going to be mostly online, make friends in your classes, get to know people. So if you're struggling, you can work together, you can study together, you can talk about assignments.
Absolutely. And specific like programs and disciplines have like study halls for students, like just to study together, just to help each other out. And sometimes they'll even invite faculty inside. So that might be an alternative too.
Yeah, that's great.
Being mindful of time, everyone. I just want to sorry, I'm totally cut off, Sheila. Yeah, go ahead, Sheila. You got it. Go ahead.
No, I was just checking if there's any other comments or questions. Over to you, Todd. Were you going to?
Great. And so just to kind of wrap up here, yeah, I think we are at the end of our time, but I also myself I can stick around for a few more minutes. Any last minute questions people have in relation to other things. But I wanted to say two things as we wrap up here. One is just an appreciation of sincere gratitude of the effort, time, and energy that all of our panelists took, time out of their weekend, out of their schedule, out of their summer to make this connection. And it does, I think, speak to the willingness and the relationship and like the true level of care that you get from resources at New College particularly, but really at the University of Toronto. People want to welcome you, people want to support you. And so that's kind of hopefully been reflected to you in this conversation with our various resources we've had today. So to each of you, thank you so much. I also wanted to kind of just look ahead as we move into our next wave of our New College summer welcome. And so with that, I have two things to share. One is to keep in mind that For all of these sessions, those that were with us earlier this morning, we were talking about the mock lecture or what university lectures may look like. And then the second today here with the academic supports at New College, we do have response or feedback questions to ask you to reflect on some of the pieces that we've had. And so I would ask you to navigate your way onto presence. If you haven't seen presence or haven't worked with that, you can write us in the chat with our email address where you can reach out to me. But on presence, you have a chance to kind of reflect on and just kind of hear what your thoughts were on the session, previous sessions we've had. That'll give you a chance to reflect and move forward. The last thing I wanted to say before I kind of throw it for any final words to the panel was to just kind of acknowledge two things. One is, again, appreciating your time, your effort, your energy connecting with us. We know there's a lot of things up in the air right now, and we're hoping these online sessions can give you a little bit more clarity as we kind of work through this together, but also to know what our next piece is. And so not this weekend coming, but the weekend after, of Saturday, July 18th, we'll be having our residence at New College session. So those who are intending to live in residence, those who have applied, those who have lots of questions, we'll have a residence life team and a residence administration team at New College to kind of speak to you about what you can expect living in residence, particularly at a year like this, but also in general. Excuse me. And again, just like what the application looks like, a lot of hoops we'll have to jump through. So we appreciate that. So with that, I will close with a shameless plug is to again continue to follow Life at New. And oh, sorry, that didn't go publicly. That was just to one person. But if you can follow us at Life at New, that's where you're going to find out more information for all of these sessions. Our recordings will be posting on Presence in the coming week. We'll also post it to YouTube and make that out there for everyone who could maybe join late or had to leave early. So again, stay in touch with us, reach out to us, and hopefully that's a little bit more helpful. And so as I maybe look, I see the last couple of messages kind of came through, but I wanted to kind of just open up to my panel that we have here. Any last minute thoughts, comments as I look at the last couple of questions we've had here?
I could start. I just wanted to say, thank you to everyone that not only organized the panel, but joined us as well. There's a great, I echo the things that are happening in the chat. Your New College, I think, obviously I'm not biased, I'm objective, that New College is the best college at the University of Toronto. It's a very supportive environment. You're all made the right choice. Stay safe and don't get too intimidated by everything like that's here. Also have fun, right? While you're going through this experience, okay? That's something that we often forget, and I hope to see some of you in real life as well.
Yeah, that's great, Kevin. I'll just jump in to say thank you so much for coming this morning and being part of this. And it was great to be with my fellow panelists, and a thank you to Todd for all the organizing and Annetta. And yeah, it might feel a bit, you're uncertain. We're all uncertain in these times, and it's unfortunate this happens to be the year you're beginning university. I absolutely love New College. I chose to work at the New College Writing Center because it's a very strong writing center, and New College is a community. People are really here for you, and you may find that at other parts of U of T for sure, but it's a place where we believe in people getting to know each other and supporting each other, and we believe in dialogue and conversation, and you're not in this alone.
For sure. And so with that, Annetta, thank you to it. Any final questions we may have, we can do that. We can stick around. I know some people have private messaged me about some more specific things, so I can stay on myself. What I might do as a last piece here is, again, keep checking your email. You'll get notifications on social media about these kind of sessions. People are saying these are helpful, and that's great. There will be other sessions like this. So keep following us on social media. Also, for those that are incoming New College students, all of you here, you do have a personally assigned New College peer leader, an upper year student that's assigned to you for your entire first year experience. And so that's not just for the summer, that's all the way through September, and then all the way through to course enrollment and finishing your first year in April. So if you haven't reached out to your peer leader yet, also please be checking your email and writing it to them, because they're waiting to hear from you. They're excited to learn from you and get to connect with you and support you as we go through as well. So with that, I'm not seeing any last questions in the chat. So maybe I'll call the recording there. I'll end it right here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, Netta, sorry.
Sorry, Todd, I'm just going to cut you off. I have a question from a student. So the question is, if the situation it gets better, sorry, are you still able to hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bit broken up.
Yeah.
The question is, if the situation gets better, are we able to go to campus for lectures instead of online this fall? I think that, okay. So I'm going to send you this question so that you can read it
Yeah,
out. I'm sorry,
that'd
my
be great.
internet's really
That'd be
wonky.
great. No
Okay.
problem. So the question is, if the situation is getting better and better, are we able to go to campus for lectures instead of online lectures this fall? I'll ask other folks, and they've been one on the way on that question. Any last minute thoughts on that?
Yeah, so from what's been communicated to us so far, there's a lot of moving parts to everything. Like, obviously people are concerned that if, you know, trends don't continue to go down, then we will have to move everything online. But right now, if you're in smaller classes, and we've only been dealing with this, or the communication to me has only been on the social sciences side. So if people are in labs, I can't speak to that, but for the classes that are on the smaller side, they said less than 200, which, you know, I think that's still quite a few courses that would apply to first year students. You have the option to come in, but I would just say to everyone to use common sense, to make sure that you're safe above all, because it's still going to be new for the university, right? Because they're still sending out things. As instructors, we're asking questions. What does it mean when we come into the classroom? Like, is it going to be sanitized? Do we have to sanitize it? And all that stuff is still getting sorted out. I saw an email saying that students will be responsible for bringing their own sanitary wipes or whatever to wipe the desks or surfaces and stuff like that. So, I mean, if that's cool with you, you know, you're welcome to do it. But also, I know a lot of people also like have a lot of reasons why they would not want to put themselves in that position. And like I said, things will eventually get back to normal. If everything goes according to plan, all of the winter courses will be in person. So like I said, a lot of this stuff right now, we're just in a weird time where we're waiting to see what happens. And that's with, you know, the health regulations in Ontario, but also at the university level as well. So hopefully within like the next 2 weeks, they said by the end of July, we should have a better idea where we'll be. So if you have some patience, I think things will look a lot clearer in a few weeks. I know that's not helpful now, while you have those questions, but I think, as Annetta mentioned, the COVID update website or webpage for U of T is something that you know, it's worth checking out.
And Kevin, thank you for that. If I can actually build off of you, one thing from a student life, residence life perspective, to maybe just share on that piece is, you know, maybe someone's like, well, if it comes late and it's too late for me to know if I need to move to Toronto or get a flight to Toronto, or what that looks like, and what does quarantine look like going on there, like all the kind of questions. Specifically from a residence point of view, but I think this really translates a lot of pieces too, is if students have to maybe be online for September and then shift to being in person to like November, like there's an ability to do that in residence, for example. And I'd imagine that professors would find a way to navigate that if they were able to for classes as well. So it's not to say that we have to have a clear definitive thing right now. This is the hard thing for a lot of our students that we're working with, is you reasonably want answers, and we are also asking those questions to our administrative folks at the university. Yeah. And so as we find out more, I think Kevin alluded to that that late July period, that's the notification we were hearing too. So we're expecting to have a little more clarity over the coming weeks. So wanted to make note of that as well. Great. Were there any parting questions? And thank you, Kevin, for adding to the chat there as well, for sure. Participation in online counts the same. So there you go, for sure, great point. Any other final questions before we call that? Okay, okay, great. Oh, we got a big question there. Okay, you know what I might do is, out of respect for people's time, I'm gonna call the recording right here. But if there's any last minute ones, I'll stick around myself. Other panelists, they have to go. I wanna respect your guys' time as well. So with that, I'm gonna call the recording. I see the question from John, we'll get to that. So thanks everyone.
I'll be here for any other questions too.
Fantastic. And so those that are watching not live and are watching this as a recording, thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to meeting you in the fall sometime. And those that are still on live, we'll end this and we'll keep talking for a few more minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.